Yo guys, welcome back to the channel. Let's take this time to go over the Redcat Fusion Ascent. Redcat Ascent Fusion, whatever. Uh, yo guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're just going to do a quick once-over of the new Redcat Ascent Fusion and just see how the build quality is, see what needs thread lock, what has been thread locked already, and just kind of see if there's any issues with this before I take it out and run it. The main reason I'm doing this is because it's raining outside and I can't run it today. I would typically just throw a battery in this and I'd be too excited to go over it, and I would probably regret it if and when I found something that was loose or not set right. So it's probably a good thing that it's raining and I'm going to take the time to go over this truck, because I always say I'm going to do it and then I get too excited. So anyway, let's do that. Two areas I really want to focus on, because I know I've seen in Facebook groups and other videos, I've seen guys have some issues. There is a little set screw in the front universal here that holds in the pin. And if that comes loose, the pin comes out and everything falls apart. Also on the pinion gear and the axles, it is a two-piece pinion gear, which is kind of odd, but that screw that holds it together really needs some thread lock, and you need to make sure that thing stays tight, or again, it's just going to fall apart and you're going to have to fix it out on the trail or come home and fix it. So those are the two main things. I'm also just going to check all the pin screws on the drive shafts and just kind of give everything a once over, make sure everything is good and tight. Not going to really get into any kind of modifications on this. The only thing I'm going to do before I run this, just because I know from experience that single stage foams are not great, I'm just going to install some Endura blue silicone inserts here, 20 bucks. I have one done already. They fit these tires really nicely. They're a little on the firm side. I think I'm going to run them and hope that they break in. But I went with the blues specifically because I know I can trim them a little bit to soften them. The green ones, if they end up being too soft, then they're too soft. There's nothing you can do. So I may end up mixing and matching. We'll see. But for now, I'm just going to put blues in all around and go out and run it and see how it works. So I'm not going to get into any modifications in this video. That's going to be a future video. And yeah, check out my other video if you're curious about the ESC settings. I have a video I just uploaded about what ESC settings are available on this RTR Fusion motor. And that's it, guys. So let me get into this and let's pull a couple things apart and see what we're looking at here. Okay, so I just pulled one of these wheels off, and I'll show you. You actually don't need to pull the wheel off to get to this, but I probably would. It just makes it that much easier. If you rotate the axles here, you'll see that this universal joint has a little set screw in it, and I use a 0.05 driver. I think I bought this for like SCX24 stuff, but it fits this extremely well. There's really no wiggle room, right? So let's just see how tight this is. So same axles as my Gen 9, and I checked these on my Gen 9, and they were super, like I was scared to try to loosen them because they must have had some crazy thread lock. These don't feel like they have any thread lock on them. So for whatever reason, I feel like my Gen 9 had, you know what I'm going to do real quick, because I don't think that I ever magnetized this tip. I don't want to drop that anywhere. So I'm going to hit this with a magnet real quick and just magnetize this tip. Okay, so just, ran this back and forth across a little high-powered magnet, and it is now magnetized. So here is the set screw we are talking about, and it does not appear to have any Loctite on it. So I'm going to clean this real quick with alcohol. So yeah, I'm just going to, wipe this with a little bit of alcohol on here. You could use any kind of like parts cleaner, just because there's typically like grease and oil, and some thread locks don't really play well with those. They just won't really cure as nice. And you could see like a bunch of crap oil residue came off of that. So I'm just going to use, this is, got this off Amazon, some 243 thread locker. This stuff is strong, man. Like this, I don't recommend this for majority of the parts on RCs. You should, you know, for little tiny little things like this, if you want to be able to remove them, you. Oh, geez, that was a lot. A lot just came out. This hardly, it never happens like that. Must have been excited for video, but you know, like purple thread lock is actually better for teeny tiny little screws like this, stuff that you're going to be, you know, removing every once in a while. And just be aware when you go to put this back in, um, like loosen it first until you feel it kind of like set a little bit. Don't just, this thing wants to cross thread pretty easily, you know, so use a good driver. I actually recommend, like this fits so tight, it's hard to get it out. I recommend, this is a dynamite, you know, if you're going to be messing with these every so often. That's it. So that's pretty much done. You know, I trust that once this cures, like I said, this stuff, you know, it's borderline issue trying to remove this. Even on like an M3 screw, I've had issues. You know, not all blue Loctite is blue Loctite. This stuff is stronger than a standard 242 Loctite. Anything I've used in the past. Different brands, you know, I don't know. They're slightly different compounds. One thing I don't like, some of these hexes slid off really easy, and if you're not careful, it'll slide off and the pin drops out. This one seems to be tight, but yeah, I mean, nice brass, you know about that. And we're going to see how, I'm not a huge fan of curved rod ends. I think they're weaker by design. I'd rather have the curve be in the actual metal part of the steering link here. And again, like if you do break one, like who has a curved rod end like this with them? You know, most of the time you can grab any straight rod end and slap it on there, and it'll kind of you know, allow you to run the rest of the day. So I'm not a huge fan of that. I'd rather see the curve in the metal part and then use like a straight end. But that's something. Look, you know, if somewhere down the road I need to upgrade the links on this, it's not a huge deal, especially considering you can find stainless links on Amazon for like 15 bucks. So I'm going to do the same thing to the other side, and then let's move on to the rest of the truck and see. Yeah, so it was the same deal on the other Universal. There was no thread lock on that, so that came apart pretty easily. I'm going to pull off these the diff covers here and take a look inside, and I want to check the screw that holds the pinion gear to the pinion gear shaft, and then we'll move on to the drive shafts and check those. This pin holding in the drive shaft here, very easy to remove, no thread lock, so I'm definitely going to clean these, put a little thread lock, and just do all of them on the entire round. Just, it's not something you want to fall out while you're running. Okay, so there's really no easy way to get to this screw that holds the pinion gear on, aside from you got to slide the axles out and take the locker out and the ring gear and stuff. So I just removed the kingpin screws here from the top and the bottom. I removed the nut and the screw that holds this steering link on. And then what we can do is, and just be careful because there's a little bushing here that that sits inside your C-hub, and the top one is going to fall out. If you flip this thing over, the bottom one's going to fall out. So I recommend just taking them out and setting them aside before they hit the floor and you never find them again. So that's one axle out. This axle, you know what? I'm going to have to take this off. I thought I could leave this on, but this is the steering link connected to the servo horn is, you know, so I got to take this off too. So it's not that bad. Okay, so there we have it, guys. We have the, you know, just took everything out just in one shot. And you could actually see, take a much closer look. So this is something you kind of just do this all in one shot, right? Just pull these off, and while these are out, you can much easier, you don't have to pull the wheel off. You can just access this pretty easily from here. So that's the little set screw. The other side, you'll see just the barrel that the set screw goes in, and just here's the set screw. So yeah, just do this all in one shot. Now that that is out, you should be able to remove your whole locker assembly here. I'm going to double check those screws there too. And yeah, now we can get to, that's the screw in question right there. So typically, like, this is not common. Let me just grab something to pull this out. Ooh, now we're getting all surgical here. I don't know if there's going to be any. Yeah, I wouldn't expect there to be any shims on this. I don't see any shim in there. Yeah, there's no shims. I don't know if that's going to vary model to model, but anyway, let's. This is what we're talking about here. Typically, these are all just one piece machine from all, you know, same material. This is a two piece. Let's see. Oh, let's see what we got here. So 1.5. Let's see. Oh yeah, that honestly, that was not that tight, man. This is just a teeny little, you know, doesn't have a big handle for a lot of torque, and that came out pretty easily. So this small screw, and okay, so you have two flats on here. I don't know. Yeah, looks like sintered metal. You know, not a big deal. I'm sure it'll hold up fine. So again, what I'm going to do, clean this screw with some alcohol and throw some Loctite. I don't think this Loctite I'm using is strong enough where I don't feel the need to use like a permanent red Loctite. This is it's fairly semi-permanent. I'm just going to use that. So so I don't I don't necessarily even think this is like a Redcat thing. I think this is an RTR thing. This is what you get when you buy an RTR. There are some cost cutting measures in place. They might not do all of the stuff that you would do if you were building a kit yourself. If I were building a kit and I'm putting this screw into a metal shaft that holds your pinion gear on, I am definitely using thread lock. That is a guarantee. It's something that I would do. And I'm not going insanely crazy tightening. That's way tighter than it was, and it has thread lock. But yeah, I think this is just more of an RTR issue than it is a Redcat issue. I think this is what you get. This is where your savings are. If you're not going to buy a kit and build it yourself, this is the kind of stuff you have to deal with. If you're not going to take the kit, if you're not going to take the RTR apart and check stuff yourself, this is the stuff you're going to deal with. You're going to have issues at some point. Something's going to be loose, something's going to fall apart, something is going to be missed at the factory. This is what you're dealing with. So it pays to go over some of this stuff ahead of time. And that's why I did this video, to show you guys what I find. Chances are, if it's like this on mine, it's going to be like this on all of them, right? I don't think they just happened to miss. I don't think Threadlock Guy was out to lunch when they built my truck. Threadlock Guy doesn't exist. He was fired because it cost too much to pay him to threadlock everything. So unfortunately, this is what we're left with. And seeing that, I'm going to go ahead and check these screws because I don't want this to fall apart either. Okay, so pulled one of these out. It it looks like it has some thread lock on it. I'm going to put a little more. I cleaned it. I'm going to put a little more on. I'm going to try another one. It did not come out super easily. It did not come out easy enough for me to be concerned about it. Right. I'm going to check one more. Oh Jesus! I just dropped that, and it's in here somewhere. This is emergency. Ah, oh, thank you. I don't know. I probably have more of these somewhere, but let's check one more. And I feel like if this one's good, yeah. Damn you! This one didn't. It doesn't feel as tight. Was that just a fluke? I don't know. I think I did the one across from it. I don't know which one I just did. Damn it. Did I do that one? Bearing's falling off now. I don't know. We're just going to go. That one feels tight. That's probably the one I just did. This one feels loose. All right. So we're just going in rotation here. You know, I'm not going to bore you guys with this. I'm just going to Loctite these because I think the first one was a fluke. I don't think it had thread lock on it. I think maybe just the threads were a little gunked up. So that's it, guys. You know, just the one screw that holds, you know, your pinion together. These 4 screws in here. We can slap this back in here. It only goes in one way. We can put the axles back in. Short side over here, long side over here. Kingpins, don't forget your bushings. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the rear. It should be much easier. You don't have any steering linkage, but it's essentially the exact same thing.
Okay, so sorry about this, guys. My microphone must have crapped out and I had no audio. So just pointing out here that while it's apart, it's easy to get to screws here on your panhard mount on your axle, and I just snugged them up a little bit. They were the tiniest little bit loose. I found that any of the screws on this that go into plastic, I think they were just being really careful, and they could just use the tiniest little bit of snugging up. So anything you have access to, just, you know, throw a driver into and just double check it. If it needs to be tightened slightly, just go ahead and do that, because again, if it's in plastic, it's going to start to wiggle around a little bit and it could kind of screw up the thread. So you just want to make sure they're snug. Don't over tighten them. It's just tiny little, you know, you can feel it. So just double check everything while you have access to it. I also wanted to point out these pin screws that they use throughout the drive shafts on this truck. It has a little stepped end to it, and it's kind of annoying simply because no other pin screw that you have lying around from any other vehicle, as far as I know, I haven't seen any stepped screws like this. It's not going to fit. So if you lose one of these, or if one breaks, chances are you're probably going to lose one before you break one, I would think. And if you lose one, you're not going to just be able to grab any pin screw and throw it in there. So it's kind of annoying. You can get these in a 10-pack from Redcat. I think they're like $8. It's probably a good idea to have some of these. And if you have a little toolkit you bring with you out onto the trails, just throw a couple in there just in case. But definitely, this is why you want to thread lock these, to make sure this isn't going to fall apart in your first run and then you're screwed trying to find some of these. So just a tip.
Okay, that's it, guys. Honestly, like I didn't find any other major issues. So just to kind of reiterate here, on the front, you have your universal pin set screw. You want to pull those out, thread lock, clean it, thread lock. Your pinion to pinion shaft screw, clean it, thread lock. Your drive shaft pin screws, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then go into your transfer case, 5, 6. You have 6 of those, and then on the rear, of course, you just have your pinion screw to the pinion shaft that needs to be done, and just check everything else. You know, I did notice a couple of these screws up front here that go into anything that goes into plastic. Just it could use just a tiny little snug just to keep it from coming loose. The only thing that I noticed, and I'm not even going to so this screw that goes into the panhard mount on the axle here, I threw this driver on here and I just carefully turned it, and it just keeps spinning. You know, it's when this was installed, it was stripped out. Uh, it's not going to go anywhere. There's no way this screw can't even come out because it's blocked by the shock. And my plans are, just because I know better than to run plastic panhard mounts, especially if it's cold weather. If you take a nice tumble and your axle really smashes the ground hard, there's a lot of force on these. I feel like they're going to break. They seem like they're decently heavy duty, but I feel like they're just going to break. I know Redcat makes aluminum versions, but I've only seen the chassis mount. I haven't seen this one, so I don't know if it just wasn't on the website when I looked at it. But I know H-Tech makes both of them. So I'm going to go ahead and order those. So that'll take care of this. And if you really want to do, it's not a huge deal because this screw comes out the back. You could just put a longer screw in and put a nut on the back here, but it's not going anywhere. It's really not a big deal. That doesn't bother me at all. You know, these two I snugged up. You do not want to over tighten these. You don't want to strip that out. Overall, I'm not crazy about this design here where it goes into the plastic axle. I just feel like you're just asking for this to, even if this is aluminum, you're just asking for these to strip out. We'll see. over time, if that's going to be an issue, I would prefer this to be somehow molded into part of the C hub. I don't know. It is what it is. So other than that, guys, overall, I did not find many issues with this. Like I said, I just double check my endpoints and stuff, and yeah, it should be good to go. So a little bit of thread lock goes a long way in terms of having an enjoyable experience with this long term. So that's it, guys. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments. I'll get back to you. Stay tuned if you want to see any of the mods I do to this. Again, I said it before. I'm not going to go crazy with this. I'm just going to do some inserts and try to keep this somewhat on a budget. I think that's the appeal of this truck, is that it's a really good value. You're getting a lot for the $400, and I don't want to invest a lot of money in this. I want to try to keep it as low cost as possible, but as high performance as possible. So that's just going to be a lot of kind of DIY tuning style stuff. And stay tuned if you want to see that. All right, later.